To the committee clerk to read out the housekeeping arrangements. Thank you very much indeed. Can I ask members and officers around the table to introduce themselves? Steve?
Yeah, Steve Harris, I'm Councillor for Grace Park Ward.
Sophie Thornton, Councillor for Beechcliff and Greenall Ward.
Richard Shaw, Councillor for Beechcliff and Greenall Ward and Deputy Chair of the Committee.
I'm Diane Owens, I'm the Manager for the South Local Area Committee.
And I'm Jenny Skeever, Committee Secretary from Democratic Services to take the minutes.
Niga Bishara, Netherridge and Sharrow Ward Councillor.
I'm Paul Turpin, Green Councillor for one of the Green Councillors for Gleadless Valley.
I'm Alexi Diamond, another of the Green Councillors for Gleadless Valley.
Nick Hamilton, Head of Communities.
Thank you all very much indeed. Before we really get going with the agenda, just to explain very quickly how the meeting will work. We'll deal with the formal business first. So any apologies, declarations and minutes of the last meeting, hopefully we'll go through that relatively quickly. We'll then have some time for public questions and petitions. We do have one question that's been submitted in advance, and we will take questions from you then. But we will also be having another presentation on. So we'll then have a presentation from Diane, the South Local Area Committee Manager, who will give an update on the South Local Area Community Plan. And we'll then have a presentation on community safety and neighbourhood policing, which is why we have the Inspector and Damon, our Community Safety Coordinator, sitting at the end there. So if you do have any questions at that point that might be more appropriate for them, then perhaps wait till then. Thank you. If I can then move on to the second item on the agenda, which is apologies for absence.
Received apologies from Councillors Ian Auckland, Sue Auckland, Marianne Elliott and Peter Garbutt. And Maruf Rauf.
Thank you very much indeed. Item number 3, and there are no items that require the exclusions of the press and public. Item 4, do we have any declarations of interest of anything on the agenda? We don't. Thank you very much. Then we're on to the minutes of the previous meeting. Can I just ask members to approve them as a correct record? Thank you very much indeed. So we'll move on to public questions and petitions, and we do have a question from Mr. Slack, who says I hear he's amended his question somewhat in the light of the discussion we've had. So if I can ask you to be as brief as possible, but it's a fairly involved question, so I understand some explanation may be needed. Thank you.
This should be fun, juggling this. No, you're fine. Yeah, I'm afraid it is a slightly long question, but it's one that I think is worthy of consideration by the committee. This is my first visit to an actual meeting of the LAC, and I want to offer some budget suggestions. The committee will be well aware of the multi-million-pound deficit in the mismanaged property services department's maintenance budget, 32 million in emergency repairs alone. The community plan to be voted on later in the meeting prioritises 3 key areas, and in 2 of these there is an overlap with the assets and infrastructure at risk within property services. I'd like to suggest that the committee task the committee management, with reviewing these suggestions in concert with property services with an aim to clear, potentially, some of these deficit repairs. This will not only improve matters immediately, but will, in a period of extreme stress on city budgets, prevent matters becoming worse and therefore more expensive to mitigate. I'm not suggesting the committee use all its budget in this way, but where its priorities overlap, seriously consider the synergy of this approach and potentially add a small amount from the unallocated 30,000, and I list some of the potential locations and hope the committee management can look at these, the feasibility of this approach as development and spending choices move forward. I think key amongst those are the ones that match in with the priorities that the committee are likely to set today. Greenhill and Bradway Youth Club need approximately just over £1,100. Greenhill Park needs £618. Batemore and Jordanthorpe Community Centre needs just over £2,000. And each of these overlap with one of the priorities that the committee have highlighted, either activities for young people or community capacity building. There's then also Beachy Abbey, which is a bit more expensive at £4,000, but is a very important heritage asset within the LAC area, and could be argued to be part of community capacity building as well, if we're looking at it in that way. And then potentially for the following year, Jordanthorpe Library requires £5,000 and is clearly a community capacity building location, and Abbey Lane Cemetery again needs just over £5,000. Interestingly, I had a conversation with Nathan Rogers from Facility Management today. We were put in contact and we discussed the idea that's down here. They are currently working on their years 3 and 4 programme for maintenance and repairs, and basically would be very interested in talking about the potential to how this might work to help mitigate some of their gaps and to achieve some of your targets. Particularly being as they were for similar buildings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. There's quite a lot to kind of unpack there and raised some very important issues. I mean, number one, obviously, is people will have heard about the quite terrifying budget situation that the council is currently in. The council used, I think, £19 million worth of reserves last year to cover their budget gap. They're planning to do similar this year, but the budget gap is growing, and essentially, it may not be possible to set a legal budget in March next year. So that's the overall background. The first thing to say is that I very much like to see all these things done, as it just so happens that we're all in Beachy and Greenhill. So I promise you, Mr. Slack isn't a plant. But it does raise very important issues about how we get our community infrastructure back up, and where I think this does show where the underinvestment has been over the years in Sheffield City Council's buildings and the buildings it manages. I know that myself and my colleagues from Beachy and Greenhill have supported Greenhill Park in very recently with some help to improve the entrances and exits and the border of the park to try and improve things there. So in those terms, we do know these issues are here, and obviously what we don't want to be doing is spending all of our money on stuff that Sheffield City Council should actually be doing. So I think a lot of this is stuff that we as the local area committee can take up and find out what exactly is the situation with all of our community buildings in the area, but also under the new governance system. I think what we can do is not we're still trying to find out how things are working under the new governance system at the town hall. But I think we can certainly ask the relevant committee to look at us and report back, perhaps to the local area committee chairs group on community buildings and what the role the local area committees can have in that. So the other very important point to make is actually, you talked about 2 years. Sadly, we do have a £100,000 budget, but that is only guaranteed for this year. Next year, we may have no budget. We simply don't know. So with that, unless my colleagues have anything to add, I'll move on to ask if anyone else has got any questions. So if you could come to the microphone, thank you. If you could come to the microphone, and if you could also, or we can bring the microphone to you if you like that. But also, if you are representing a particular organisation, please let us know what that organisation is. And thank you very much.
You got it? Okay, hello, my name is Carl Whittam. I'm a resident of Sharrow. I was brought up in Beechif, so I've got horses in 2 races here. I'm very new to this. I read the part of your plan regarding budgeting. I took the numbers. I took one word that you put in here, or some words. This funding allocation is linked to deprivation levels. I then took the funding numbers for the individual wards and divided them into the populations, and found that Beechif and Greenhill receives £6.50 per person, and Netheredge and Sharrow receives £1.73. I think you'll agree that Beechif and Greenhill aren't quite as deprived as Netheredge and Sharrow. Could somebody explain to me why people in Beechif and Greenhill get 3 times more than people in Netheredge and Sharrow? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. It's one of those things of local government finance. So there are various pots that local councils have. This is actually in the gift of local councillors. That 3 local councillors work with our local officers to work with local groups to do stuff. As I said, just like I was talking about with Greenhill Park, and we have a thing called a ward pot, which is the main one that you use. The SIL, which is the bigger numbers which you've seen against them, is the Community Infrastructure Levy, which is allocated on the basis of need by the council, or on the basis of index of multiple deprivation. They do a calculation to distribute that SIL money. The issue there is actually Netheredge and Sharrow has managed to spend their money. Beechif and Greenhill hasn't, so actually we've built up more of a pot, so it looks like we've got more, overall we've had a similar amount of money to spend. They've managed to spend theirs, we've been struggling to spend ours. We have a couple of projects, for £50,000 that we simply can't get off the ground because we're struggling with getting the officers from Amy and other places to cooperate. So yeah, that's why that looks skewed. If you look at the kind of overall allocations and how much is spent, then that gives you the actual picture of how that money is divvied up between the things. I'll probably not explain that very well.
Can I just take another point? It's about deprivation. People are doing deprivation. Why is the money moved to Sharrow and Netheredge? Because you can't spend it.
Well, no, sorry, it's not a question we can't. We've tried to spend it. And we're still trying to spend it. So there are projects we're trying to allocate against it, but it's still in our budget. You see what I mean? Whereas Netheredge and Sharrow managed to spend theirs. So as I say, it's a bit of a quirk in terms of the amount we've got in our SIL, and Netheredge hasn't. As I say, if you look at the allocations of the local ward pots, that shows you how. So Grace Park gets the least, for instance. Followed by Netheredge, followed by Gleadless Valley, followed by Beechif and Greenhill, followed by Gleadless Valley. As I say, that is done on a calculation using index of multiple deprivation to allocate that on a percentage basis. Absolutely, yes. I've got them right in front of me. If we can take your email, we may well have your details. We'll get that sent to you, and it'll certainly form part of a much better explanation in the minutes of the next meeting, hopefully. Thank you very much.
I think it's also worth adding as well, like Beechiff and Greenhall's award is, all of our wards in Sheffield City Council cover a vast area, and Beechiff and Greenhall's award encompasses areas like Low Edges, Jordanthorpe and Batemore. So when looking at sort of deprivation and need, there is obviously quite a lot of significant need in those areas south of the Parkway in our area. So as much as it seems like it on the surface, our ward is very much almost entirely different from one end to the other and covers a very diverse community. So that'll be in part as well.
I was just going to make more or less that exact same point. Thanks, Sophie. It's that each of our ward in Gleadless Valley is the 8th most deprived ward in the city, which I think you said is the most deprived ward of the 4 within this LAC. But despite having a kind of a more middle class area in Maresbrook, we have Gleadless Valley, which means overall that it's fairly deprived, and exactly the point that Sophie was making.
I'll let you one more go. Right, I mean, when you say Beacon and Green, we're also talking about Low Edges, Batemore, Jordanthorpe, which aren't Beechiff, which aren't Darwood, and that's. Sorry, I'm really going to have to. It's really not about having a debate here. If that's okay, if we can perhaps move on. I say hopefully there'll be something a bit more in the minutes. So if you can come to, if you want to take the microphone or. Right.
Sorry, I hope you can hear me reasonably clearly. I've got a different question, but it's about spending of money. Around here, there's been an application for the cycle and travelling, which has got a particular name which eludes me at the moment. Anybody get it on the tip of their head? Yeah, something like that. But it's government funded to increase cycling and walking for all sorts of very, very good and laudable reasons. And I completely support the idea that we encourage more cycling, less car use. However, one of the things that's been mooted is to get rid of the underpass at the bottom of Cemetery Road, just along here, and to put a crossing over the road, which means that a way of getting through without having to have anything to do with traffic is taken away from us. At the moment, the underpass is badly constructed 1970s or 60s architecture, with lots of sharp corners and tight turns. But there's enough space each side for it not to be the case. It just needs a bit of levelling out and a bit of smoothing through. When I have talked to some of the people who are working on this, they say, oh no, it costs too much to do that, we want to do this. Now, I have to say I don't believe a word of that. I think that maybe Waitrose wants people to use their car park more and is going in that way. Maybe the boys in the planning department actually prefer their design they've got for whatever reasons, because it works so well at the station they want to do it again. I don't know, but I would like to ask how much power this committee has to go back and ask local residents what they would like. Because most of the people that I talk to are saying, we don't want to have to cross a road, it's lovely going underneath if it could be done smoothly. It's a very short run, it's well lit, it's well ventilated, it's extremely ugly at each end. That's a bit that needs sorting. The money is coming from central government, so the council has hold of it. How do we make sure that they listen to the local community as well as everything else? Thank you.
Okay. Wait till she's gone. Sorry, can I just ask your name? Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, really, I'm no expert on these things, but what I do know is that obviously there needs to be consultation on these things. So I think what we can do is certainly ask that question, and certainly make it part of the consultation to see what can be done. So we'll get you a fuller answer in terms of somebody on the project. Sorry, to get somebody on the project to answer the points that you make. So thank you very much.
Can I just say as well, if you're on our mailing list, we are going to send some information out. There is some consultation events happening for the Active Neighbourhood Scheme in Nether Edge, so we will be sending them out to our mailing list. So if you're not on the mailing list, we'll get your details and make sure you're on it so you get the information. They're in the next couple of weeks, so the 13th and 14th of July, but we will, as Chair says, we'll follow this up directly for you and get your response as well. But thank you.
Go for it.
Thank you. I was just going to raise that. I think perhaps that might be in the central LAC as well, which is perhaps why it's not come. It crosses the ring road.
Yeah, it's true. It's borderline, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay. I think we can obviously make sure that the right people hear the points that you make. And obviously, I'd encourage anybody to get involved in that consultation. Thank you very much. Anybody else got another question? Thank you. It's getting on for about if there's any questions at past, then we'll call it a day. Then, thank you.
Hello, my name's Iona Henry. I'm a resident of Nether Edge, and it was much on the same lines, really, of consultation on the Connecting Sheffield plan, and specifically Nether Edge, the closer arch lane that's already been implemented, which I personally believe wasn't communicated to the local community very effectively at all. And I just wanted to put my 2 pennies worth in, going that I really hope that there is a real effort to communicate and make this very obvious to the local community moving forward with the potential closure of Union Road and the one-way system on Nether Edge, which can, in my belief, really can negatively impact our community with safety, getting to, personally, my road, so Ashton Road, with fire engine access, etc., and just moving forward in much the same vein, because I don't believe it's been successfully communicated to the community very well at all.
Great. Thank you very much indeed. I think I'm not sure if there's a question in there, but I think certainly the mood is that the council needs to do a much better job in communicating and consulting on this. And I think it just points up how difficult this is and how important it is to bring communities with us. So hopefully the local area committee can be part of that. Part of our plan is to encourage active travel, and as I say, we want to bring people with us.
Yeah, just on those two, the active travel, and it's got different names, which is confusing people. So we have actually stressed the concerns of the residents. There are concerns with the Archer Lane closure, as well as there are few people who are in favour. So every person's views and concerns and suggestions are just as important, like you mentioned. So from early days, we have actually stressed all those that the initial stages of the consultation hasn't been as they should be, like you've mentioned, involving people, which we have actually took on board, and we've heard from people, and we've actually been stressing that from during my, I know I'm new, this is my second LAC meeting, but I just wanted to make people aware and assure them that the consultation and the involvement of residents and businesses and everybody living in the area are being pushed, that their involvement is very important, because they're the ones who are going to be living and experience everything. So the meeting dates that were just mentioned, I would again stress and encourage everybody to be part of that. If you can't actually attend those days, there is a link which is regularly monitored. I know some people have been sharing stuff with me and the concerns that they've been experiencing, but I've been advising them that the link that's being shared, it is being monitored, and it is there that these voices need to be made visible, so that we can then say this is the evidence of people who are living in the area and the concerns that they have.
Sorry, we need you on the mic for the...
How are you actually communicating that to every person on the roads that this affects? Because this is just going out over road WhatsApp groups. It isn't up on community boards. There is no central place where this information is going out. And as another person pointed out, it is like middle class people on WhatsApp groups. It isn't involving the wider community as a whole.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we probably do need to move on. But I think the lesson here is that the council isn't doing a good enough job, and we need to up our game to make sure that this does actually deliver for the community that it's supposed to be delivering for, and it is going to affect most. So, thank you all very much indeed for that. We're going to move on to an update on the South Local Area Community Plan with Diane Owens, our South LAC Manager.
Thank you, Chair. So as part of the papers for tonight's meeting, there's the report that I've put together in terms of the community plan obviously went out, so you may have had a chance to have a look and read through that. At the last meeting of the committee in March, the community plan was approved, and the community plan's been based on, consultation and conversations we've had with communities over a sort of 6-month period or so, to inform that and to look at, what the priorities were feeling like, for the South LAC. When we talk about the South LAC, it's obviously quite a broad area and covers a number of neighbourhoods, but we tried to kind of pull that together in terms of what some of those issues were and some of the things people were talking to us about. So that plan went to the committee for approval in March. That was approved, and now this report is basically outlining some of the priority areas that the committee are proposing that they want to now look at in terms of spend from some of their budgets. So the South LAC, and each of the LACs has a £100,000 budget that it can use against the priorities in its plan. So for the South LAC at this stage, the committee are proposing to allocate some of that funding now. So the report outlines the 3 areas, and if I just go through each of them, I'm very happy to take questions at the end of this as well, if there is time. So there's 3 areas that we're proposing for spend in the report. One is to allocate £10,000 under the theme of environment and green spaces, and this is to do a project on the Lum in Gleadless Valley, which is a green space area. Very, people know it, it's a very kind of steep sloping green space with some ancient woodland in there. It's been an area that historically has attracted issues with fly tipping and litter, and actually attracted issues with fly tipping and with people dumping things from, people coming from outside of that area. Actually, we know from some of the waste that's collected. So actually, it's a hotspot really for the city in some ways. So the proposal is to allocate £10,000 towards the clearance of that area. It needs some significant clearance work in terms of removing the litter and debris that's currently there. That will require bringing in some equipment to be able to do that, and as part of that £10,000 towards some public realm improvements, things like maybe some seating, and maybe to look at things, like maybe a bit of a nature trail for children and young people as well. So trying to make it a space that the community feel valued and as a space for them. So the proposal is to allocate £10,000 towards that project. The next proposal is under the theme of communities, and it's under the heading of community capacity building. So the proposal is to allocate £40,000 from the budget to look at community capacity building. So through the consultation that was done, one of the things that people talked to us about, and this did vary across areas and communities, but very much so in some of the areas that the LAC covers. There was very much a conversation about a lack of, voluntary community sector organisations, and some organisations struggling really. So really there wasn't an awful lot of infrastructure there in terms of the voluntary community sector to support and represent the local community. And there was also other conversations just about, a need for looking at supporting more community leaders, volunteers, and building that, supporting building that community infrastructure. We know it's a modest amount of money, but it is, it's an allocation we want to kind of look at and then work with the voluntary community sector on in terms of how to spend that. So the proposal at the moment is quite high level, you'll see in that report, because really to develop that project, we have to do that with people, and the committee would be very committed to doing that and actually going out then and having conversations with people from the voluntary community sector, with people who represent those organisations, and sort of having a conversation about what the need is really in that area and how best that project could be delivered, and also talking about things like whether there's a chance to bring in any match funding with that to sort of increase that budget. So we would be wanting to look at those opportunities as well. But that project would be very much kind of, I think, it could be that we do something LAC-wide. We'll see how these conversations go. It might be that there's something that we do across the LACs, but I think there's the other chance is that it kind of looks at more of a ward level approach to depending on the needs in those areas, but it'll be very much based on those conversations. So it's allocating £40,000 to look at that community capacity building and working with communities. The third area is under the heading of children, young people and families, and it's under the section of for activities for young people. So one of the things that came through strongly in the consultation was about a lack of provision for young people, really. And we know that this is a challenge in terms of, from a budget position, it's a challenge nationally around activities and provision for young people. And that was very much echoed through the conversations we had with people through our consultations. So again, it's allocating £20,000, which we know is a modest amount, but actually we really want to work with people to see how that money can be used to, to maybe add value to some activities that are already happening, or to look at again, look at investment, and again, maybe look at some match funding where that might be possible. So, once again, this will be about conversations with people who are providing activities for children and young people. So we know that obviously the local authority and the council do provide youth provision across the area, but we know that a huge role is played by the voluntary community and faith sector in that as well, and they deliver a huge amount of activities for young people on a weekly basis, often with volunteers as a really key part of that. So I think it will be a case of having conversations again. Can't say which way, that again there could be something across the whole local area committee that you might want to do with that funding, and that might be what the message is back from people in those conversations, or again it might be that we want to do something at a more local level and divide that money and do something in each of the 4 wards, again depending on what the needs are. So the proposal is to allocate £20,000 to activities for young people. So this report really is basically saying they're at this stage, they are the 3 areas that the committee are proposing that they allocate some of their budget against. Based on those figures that I've just outlined, that would leave a balance of around £30,000 for the local area committee to then look at in terms of future priorities from the plan. And this report really is making that, proposing those areas of spend, and also an agreement then that the committee can start to spend that money against those priorities, subject to this approval, that then they can start to actually, develop those projects and start to move on those projects over the coming months, really, based on the conversations that we have with people. So that's really what's in that report. I wasn't going to say much more than that, really, but it's obviously just being proposed to the committee tonight for approval. Thank you.
Cracking. Well, thank you very much. I don't know if any of my colleagues would like to make any points, or essentially, as I say, we can move to the vote after I've done. I was going to do a little speech, but after you. Thank you.
Cheers. I just wanted to say that this is really welcome, and I guess this is really what we wanted to achieve with the LACs, is to get really focused local investment in our areas, and and we're certainly, us Greens are really pleased that this is going ahead, and we're really pleased to try and tackle an historic spot in our ward and at the Lum. That's all. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
I'd just like to second that as well. I think it's, I know it's not massive amounts of money that's going to be spent on community capacity building and for young people as well, but it is localised, and I think it's really welcome and necessary at this time. So yeah, I'd like to welcome this report as well. Thank you.
If there a quick question, go for it. If it's specifically on this report. So we do have questions later on, but.
So, about the young people in youth provisions, what are you actually going to add? And are you going to ask for our opinions on what we want? And if so, how will those conversations be had? Them are 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I really don't want to open up to a master debate. This really was only for councillors, but it's a very, very important point in terms of how we're going to be moving forward. We haven't put any specifics in here because I'm an old man and I don't really know what young people want. So the first thing to say is obviously yes, we will hopefully find out what young people want, and the way you do that is you go where young people are. And talk to them, and I'm sure there are other ways. I'm no expert in this, but as I say, that's going to be our first step. Is finding out where the need is and where we can help the most, because what we don't want to be doing is duplicating anything or, as I say, getting in anybody's way. So yeah, first do no harm. Second, as I say, get out there, find out what's going on, and as I say, hopefully come up with a plan. So if we can do some very, very swift questions, go for it. Oh, sorry. Sophie wanted to come in just on that specific point first.
Yeah, that's right. Can you just ask? Is the lady? Can I just ask as well?
Sorry, 2 seconds.
Sorry, can I just ask? Are you involved in a youth project? Or are you?
I'm currently part of the Sheffield Youth Cabinet.
Right.
Thank you.
Excellent. Brilliant, really lovely to see you. Yeah, absolutely. We want to. Yeah, we were talking to Sheffield Youth Cabinet and talking to colleagues in youth services, and also talking to people who we know, deliver from the voluntary community sector as well. So yeah, really look forward to talking to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Soph.
I was just going to add. Sorry, I didn't catch your name. Lisa. No, nice to meet you. I was just going to add as well, if you have any suggestions for us as to how we can better communicate that, then please feel free to get in touch with any of us, particularly Diane and Simon. Just so that we can make sure that that's, inclusive going forward. And, I'm a young person, but I still don't have the answers to everything on this as well. I've got some ideas, but I'm sure that you'll have better ones as well. So please just let us know if you've got any suggestions on that going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go for it. Apologies.
Will meet with us, and also get some visits in the diary to schools in our LAC as well. Like people there. I think we were planning to go to Newfield School at one point.
Yeah, I'm absolutely, I'm sure. I think that was, we certainly did discuss that before, is coming and seeing our representatives, certainly in the local area, and see what we can do. So, obviously there's that synergy there, and thank you very, very much indeed for coming tonight and asking your question. Mum, huge apologies.
Really?
Away you go.
Excellent. I read from the report that women and girls appear to be avoiding the area in the evenings. Does that worry you at all? And if yes, what's being done about it? Street lighting appears to be an issue. Maybe the police would like to say something about this?
I take it you're referring to the Mount Pleasant master plan, so we're going to cover that after our presentation, if that's okay. We will be doing shortly. Is that okay?
I think it's fair to say there's a focus on that sort of work at the moment, and we're seeking funding to actually address those issues and have something like a women's safety audit conducted in the area to actually add more to the plan. So those are the sort of things that we're putting in play at the moment, so that we can get that voice of women and girls as well, to add depth to the plan. And park up the road in Mount Pleasant.
Go for through Councillor Basharat.
Just quickly, even though it's going to be already discussed on the question that you raised, it has been identified, even through the work I've been doing and speaking to residents and stuff. Lighting has been a big issue in terms of, accessing parks just for local strolls and stuff, and generally just not feeling safe due to many of the concerns and issues. So when I identified Sharrow Community Forum, Friends of the Park are doing this master plan, so I fed all of those suggestions and concerns with Marian, who I'm working closely with. So they have definitely been picked up, and it is a concern, which is why I actually made sure that I was involved in the process from the start as well. So it will be addressed later on.
Thank you very much indeed. If I can, we will move into a formal vote on this. I do want to say a few things about the three main items on the agenda, on the plan. So the first thing to say is to thank everyone for all the hard work that they did on the LUM. I think it's been a very long road in terms of getting to the point that we're at now, and a lot of people have done a lot of thinking to come up with a plan that's actually in budget and it was realistic to deliver not just a clean-up, but hopefully to bring back some community spirit and obviously make it harder for the LUM to get back into that situation. I think the second part of it in terms of building community capacity. I mean, that's having been the LAC chair for a year and a bit now, and having met a lot of organisations and looked at the capacity. That's whilst being amazed by the great work that they do, you're always conscious that it is very few people that are generally the driving forces behind these things, and they need help, and especially after recovering from being in lockdown for 2 years. A lot of these organisations just haven't got the capacity and the drive. And I say we need to find a way of doing that. And again, we're not prescribing how that's done. We want to go and talk to people to find out how best we can get that done for them and for their communities. And I say we've spoken a bit about what we're planning to do in the youth provision. As I say, I think it's well recognised that over the last few years that the youth provision in the city has not delivered anywhere near what it should have done and needed to. I think we recognise that hopefully we can try and address some of that locally, on the ground, and directly with people having found out what they want to do. So with that, if I can ask my colleagues to vote, those in favour by a show of hands. That's great. Well, that's unanimously carried. Thank you all very much indeed. Thank you for that. And so we will obviously be reporting back both on the progress of those three projects, but also on the other work we do. So it's not really only about that budget. We do consider the plan covers lots of other areas, parking, I can't think of active travel, all of these things. And as I say, that is all part of what the local area committees are doing and will be doing in the future. So thank you, colleagues, very much for that, and thank you. We're now going to, I'll now hand over to Katie Rowland Wilson and our local police inspector, and Daniel Pass, our community safety coordinator, who'll give an update on community safety and neighbourhood policing. Thank you.
Okay, good evening everyone. I'm Katie Wilson. I'm the police inspector for the South West neighbourhood teams. So we're based at Woodseats. We cover 6 ward areas from there. So I'm just going to give you a brief sort of overview of the teams and some of the key processes that we adopt each and every week. Working alongside our teams is Damon Pass. He's obviously part of the local authority, but his role is very much embedded within our teams up at Woodseats. Okay, so each team is made up of a sergeant, a number of police officers, and then PCSOs. At the moment, each team has got 4 PCs and between 2 and 4 PCSOs. So not huge numbers, and each team has got 3 ward areas. So Ben Brown is the sergeant for the Gleedless team, They cover the Gleedless Valley, the Graves Park and the Beechief and Greenhill wards. And then the other sergeant unfortunately couldn't be here today. They cover the Sharrow, Nether Edge, Dore, Totley and Ecclesall wards, which obviously some of those areas aren't covered by this local area committee. So for us, we focus on a national theme, so policing in neighbourhoods is set really by the government, so it's set centrally. But three of the main key themes that we look at is engagement, problem solving and targeted activity. So they're the three sort of main strands that the teams are focusing on. We ran a community survey about 12 months ago, so that was when I was new to post. That was run across all the ward areas, and basically from that the community voted and gave us three main priority issues that mattered to them. So as you can see, they were residential burglary, speed in vehicles and drug dealing, and it was in that order. So they are the three main sort of pieces of work that we focus our problem solving efforts on. One of the key things that I've really worked hard to set up is the neighbourhood action groups. So unlike every other neighbourhood policing team across Sheffield, we've currently got 3 neighbourhood action groups. So they are focused at the moment within Sharrow and Nether Edge, Gleedless Valley and then Low Edges, Jordanthorpe and Batemore. So those meetings bring together statutory partners but also voluntary sector agencies. The first part of the meetings we refer to as Part A is just about general issues within those areas. So we focus on what are the key issues that are affecting the communities within those areas and how can we all contribute as statutory and voluntary sector to really focus our efforts on those issues. And then Part B is looking at key nominals of concern. So that is just literally the statutory partners that are party in the room. And we talk about what the issues are around key nominals, what safeguarding do we need to put in place, and really make sure that we're all sharing information in that room. The problem-orientated policing plans, so they are real problem-solving plans that are run by my teams within key sort of hotspot areas. So as an example, we've got one in Sharrow and Nether Edge around theft from motor vehicles and also around burglary and business burglaries. We've had a sort of spike within the last 3 months of those crime types, so we're really focusing our efforts on who is the offender, what sort of crime prevention advice can we give out around what themes are we seeing in those offences and how we can prevent that happening in the future, but then also looking at designing out crime, so focusing on lighting, CCTV and any other sort of possible solutions to those issues. They're just a couple of examples. There are a number of POP plans that we've got in the areas. Neighbourhood crime, so that is featuring around residential burglary, business burglary, theft of motor vehicles, theft from motor vehicles and robbery offences. So every day we're looking at that information, we're looking for patterns and themes that might be emerging. We generally try and push out, like I say, designing out crime and crime prevention advice around Facebook sort of posts. And we've also got officers who are working on the hotspot areas and where we need to really be focusing our efforts. And then I've just mentioned there about repeat vulnerable victims, so that's really focused on victims who are repeats and who might need some additional safeguarding and what we can do around those to prevent them becoming further victims or to safeguard them in their homes. I'll let Damon talk about his role, because obviously it brings a lot to our teams and we work closely together.
Okay, good evening everyone. Sorry. So I'm the civilian in the Woodseats police station that they've allowed me to be there. I've been in post since the end of March this year, so I'm relatively new. What I would say, I know the police don't mind me saying this, it's sat at the side of me, is they haven't got an army of police officers in Woodseats police station. I'm sorry to break that to you. But what they have got is a relatively small but incredibly dedicated team of officers that do a really difficult and challenging job and deal with some of the most difficult aspects of society. So it's been great for me to join this team and try and help. I guess in crude terms, I'm the link between the council and the police force, but my role really is about facilitating partnership working to solve problems, to solve your problems. And I think the NAG meetings are like the key driver for that in terms of partnership working. We've got all the key partners there. We've got the schools there, the police, housing, central council teams, your local councillors, social services, your community groups, your champions, your TARAs, your Sharrow Community Forums. It's a really dynamic, live and innovative way of sorting out some of the more complex behaviours of a small minority that want to spoil the quality of life for the rest of us. I think that the thing that we've all got in common in terms of the NAG membership is that we all care and we're committed, and we want Sheffield to be a nice place for you all to live. But it's incredibly difficult because you as local residents will know that there's a lot of trouble out there. So the NAGs are building up, the memberships are building up, the discussions take place frequently. I guess in summary, we're doing our best, we're working really hard. It's probably not hard enough for everybody, but we can't work miracles, but we're committed and we're really trying to deal with some of the most disruptive cohort of individuals that cause all these problems.
The final slide, I just wanted to talk about where those neighbourhood action groups are. So I know we talked about the key people that attend those meetings. We've had some really positive pieces of work come out of some of these neighbourhood action groups. Diane, as chair of the LAC, attends and alongside her colleague Sarah Lucas. So we do have somebody from the LAC at every single one of the neighbourhood action groups. The Sharrow Nether one now has been embedded for about 12 months. That's the longest running one in the city. It's been set as good practice, and that's something that's been mirrored, so that the processes that we've put in place have been mirrored across the whole of the city. It's really effective at managing issues and nominals of concern. That one's held every 4 weeks. We've had some really positive results come out of that. So the Mount Pleasant Park Master Plan is one of those examples. So I applied for some funding from the Home Office, and that's been commissioned to the Sharrow Community Forum to build this plan. And the plan is not just around the park, it's around the area. So it's around key issues that are affecting the area. And that's going to be a long sort of living piece of work. The document is written, and obviously that's available at the back for you to have a look at. But it's very much a living document, and what we're hoping to achieve is lots of different levels to the plan and looking at lots of different funding streams that are going to be coming in the future. So you mentioned about the violence against women and girls agenda. That is obviously very important to me, and that is at the heart of this plan alongside some other pieces of work. And it's really important to us that we get the community's consultation. That's already happened. But like I say, it's a living document, and it's something that will continue to listen to the community's feelings around the area and look at some further funding streams around. The Mount Pleasant Park building, which is next to the park, so it's the old derelict Mount Pleasant building with the school. We've had some really successful results around that, so we've worked in partnership with the local authority, with the developer who's actually going to be working in the area, and hopefully within the next 12 to 18 months the plans there are really going to add some further development opportunities in respect of recruitment for jobs, and also making the area feel much safer. Once that's in development, that's sort of going to overlap with a lot of the plans that we've got in place there. Then moving on to Bakemore, Jordan Thorpe and Low Edges, that one is every 8 weeks, so it's every other month. We hold that at the Meadowhead Secondary School. Key to that one is around education, that we've made some real progress there. I think we've only so far held 4 meetings, but we've got some key members from the voluntary sector that support us with that, and we're really working on a lot of plans around youth engagement, ASB issues, and looking again at some funding streams. That kind of overlaps with the issues that we see in the Gleedless Valley Neighbourhood Action Group, so that one is the newest one. We've held 2 so far. That one's every 6 weeks. We sort of have to plan them in around our workloads. That one again, you know, we've got some really good pieces of work ongoing with the TARAs, looking at youth provisions within those localities, and hopefully just making the area feel better, and obviously making it a much safer place for the communities. That's pretty much it from me. I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
Fantastic. Well, I just to say thank you very, very much indeed for coming and for giving that presentation. So I'm sure people will have questions for you, but also to thank Jonathan Roberts from Sharrow.
Yeah, I was just going to say it might be worthy of Jonathan talking a little bit more about Master Plan. I just touched on it.
Yeah, I was just asked to come today just to back up to give you an idea of some of the things that are happening in the area. The master plan is one of the key pieces of work for us at the moment. So part of our narrative is to create, well, it's designing out crime in the local area, but also designing in positive activity. And that for us as Sharrow Community Forum is the key issue. We're working with the police, obviously, to design out crime. So a lot of the master plans we're looking at how, well, be things like extra lighting in the park where there isn't any lighting because it's stopping people using certain areas. It'll be looking at outdoor gym equipment to allow people to get more involved in the park. So there are things like that that are immediate buy-ins and quick wins for us. We've already managed to attract some funding to actually get some of those underway. This is, as Katie announced, it's a live document, so consultation is continuous. So as we put our efforts in there and things become apparent, such as, like I say, new lighting in there or other things like that, then that will evolve and we will be able to move on to the next stages. But it depends on what people are asking for as to what we design next. So this is, like I say, a live document. We've got a plan to work this for the next 2 or 3 years, where we're going to realise more funding to actually enact parts of it. So that's the key bit really for us at the moment. There are copies at the back. This is an abridged version, by the way. Didn't want to give you the whole lot. It's too heavy to handle, but there is a larger version. If anybody wants the full version, we can do that. That's got all the costings in and everything else like that. So a lot to do with this. It's quite kind of like a wish list, if you like. Because some of it's way beyond what we've got at the moment in terms of resources. But let's dream and let's hope we can get to the other end of it as well. Because I think actually by enacting parts of this, it has a knock-on effect. Positive activity, getting more people to use the park, putting more amenities into the park, so public toilet, a cafe potentially. Those are the sort of things that are going to drag people into the park, and that will bring more people to it, and it will get rid of the people that we don't want that are causing mayhem in it in the first place. So design them out, or I guess we probably disperse them to somewhere else, I hate to say, but at least what this is, like I say, a positive but a live document. There is on the back a sheet that if you wanted to add your comments, you can add them and you can pass them back to us. If you want to come and talk to me or give me your email address because you want to do that online, I'm happy to do that as well. So if you want to come and have a chat at the end, please do. We need your voices because actually it's your voices that actually make this plan real. Okay, thank you.
Cracking. Thank you very much for that. Go for it.
I was just wondering, what park will that be at? And go on.
Park.
Okay.
So our work is based around there, but it's also looking at arterial routes from that. So London Road, Abbeydale Road. So the issues that are around there. So it's basically, that is the plan that we're working on at the moment.
Will you be taking that onwards and doing it at other parks if this is successful?
From our point of view, we're happy to share with anybody else in any other areas as well. I think the key for us is always partnership anyway. So if there are other areas within, we mentioned earlier that there's underspend in other parts of the LAC area because there's no infrastructure. Well, I think, that's just nonsensical when there's no money about. So I think it's about time that the LAC should be a vehicle for creating partnerships across the LAC area. We're established, I think people like Healy City Farm and Healy Development Trust are established in the area, and I think there's a certain amount of experience there that should be called upon. And I'm sure Andy would be happy, I'm putting words into his mouth, to share his experience and expertise and to help other parts of the LAC area. I think it's important.
Yeah, that's brilliant to say. I mean, that's exactly what we want to hear, really. As I say, it's about our capacity and it's about helping people because these things you're not doing them a lot of time for the first time and you're not on your own. That's the other thing. So we're here to support you.
It was just so really that we get a fantastic amount of help and support and input from the LAC, from Diane and Sarah and the team. So it's just to acknowledge that at this meeting, really, to say thank you. Thank you, guys.
Go for it, Steve.
Thank you, Simon. I've got a question, I think, for Katie. We all know the current financial situation of the council at the moment, and I was just wondering whether you have any influence in the funding that comes from time to time from the Police and Crime Commissioner, and whether or not there's more that we can do in terms of the local area committee in order to make sure that we're on top of when those bidding rounds come up.
Yeah, so we do have some key contacts there, and I think it's worthy of making sure that we're all on the same page, so that when that funding does come out for various issues, that we can all tap into it effectively. Because I think some of the areas, within the local area committee this covers, are lacking in, like we say, youth provision and some key sort of... we've got the community that are able to deliver. It's just making sure that we're tapping into that right funding stream. And like you say, the VRU is key to that. So, yeah, we've got some really positive contacts, and we do work really closely with Diane, and it's worthy, I think, if we do get any suggestions, that we make sure that we're getting the bids together, for when the funding is released.
Thank you. Does anyone have any further questions? Okay, great. Well, thank you very, very much indeed for that, and so thank you, Jonathan, for coming along and for doing for all your work on the master plan, and everyone you're working with, and for all your colleagues. And so thank you for coming on and informing us on that. And so thank you for your offer of help. So again, thank you all very much for coming. I hope you found the meeting useful. If you haven't signed up yet for our South Local Area Committee mailing list, please do speak to one of the officers who can help, or go to the website. The next meeting is on the 11th of October, same time, 6 to 8 p.m. Venue is to be confirmed. But we will be planning to move around the 4 wards. I think the one ward we haven't gone to yet is Gleadless Valley. So with that, thank you all very much indeed. Sorry, not Gleadless Valley, Grace Park. With that, without mistake, thank you all very much indeed for coming. As I say, do feel free to hang around and have a chat about any of the issues that we've raised tonight, or anything else. Thank you all very much indeed.